still, constant water in the cave. And it's sitting on top of this rock behind you. It holds a little bit less than a gallon of water. It's a couple of inches deep, and we call it Lake Inferior. Around the outside is what's known as the stone that's made of calcite, some of the minerals, very slowly building up around the edges of the body of water, sort of like ice over lake. Eventually that limestone will cover it, and once it's covered by the mineral, it's going to continue to be dripped on and will form a stalagmite. That is going to take many thousands of years to happen. If you follow my flashlight up from Lake Inferior, you can see one of our rare formations, a type of stalactite known as a halictite. We're not sure how it got this odd crooked shape. We've just nicknamed it E.T. Along the back wall here is a column that I mentioned earlier. You might have seen it coming up the stairs. We call it the totem pole. It's about 14.5 feet tall, estimated to be about 500,000 years old, so it's the largest and oldest formation inside of it. Up here at the top, you might see the face of a woman with a hat and big hoop earrings. And then sitting on her head is the head and body of another person, just big outline. Then all the way down here is a profile view of a duck looking that way. And on the back of this head, you might see a small elephant. So all those are what we call totem poles, because you can hopefully see a couple of faces in there. Above that on the ceiling are some very thin soda straw stalactites. Because of a special mineral deposit in their center, the calcite and other minerals form directly around that center, and that gives these a thin, hollow shape. You technically could break one off and use it as a straw and make your drink taste very salty. On this little outcropping of rock here, this stalagmite that's above your head. Some of you might see just a bit underneath of it. We call it sandcastle rock, and it's very dry and dusty. It's a naturally dead formation, so unlike ultra rock in the Crystal Ballroom, no human did anything to cause this to die away. The earthquake that took place 500,000 years ago is responsible because it shifted the stalactites that fed it mineral water, so now it doesn't get enough to keep going, so it's eroding away from the outside in and from the inside out. In the video that you watched, they talk about the signature room, and I can't take you down there. We haven't let us down there for a very long time, but I can give you an idea of where it is. Along here to my right, there's a rocky path that's leading down into the cave. So if you were to follow that, you'll find you entering your left. Right about down here, so you turn left through there, follow a little while, turn left again, then call in on your back into that room. It's very small, it has about 85 signatures, and I believe it's about somewhere behind this rock here. At the beginning of the tour, I did say you weren't allowed to touch any of the formations, but we have one exception to that rule. On the ground here, we have our fried eggs. These are stalagmites that are broken off, so you guys wouldn't trip over them. Please feel free to touch them with your hands if you would like to, get an idea of what the formations feel like. Just keep in mind, these ones here are the only ones you can touch. After this, we go back to the no-touch rule, even if they look like these. You can touch them, I promise I won't yell at you.
I have to like touch them in your hand.
Come on, at least one person. There we go. Really brave during lights out, so good job.
Almost there.
Oh, it was yours?
Where we are now is known as Lookout Point. You can see about 2/3 of the cave we've just come through, for about 500 feet from the entrance, and up here you get a much better view of Cathedral Dome. We're also about 60 feet underground. That makes this the warmest and wettest part of the cave. It takes water only about a day or a day and a half to reach down here, so there's more growth and grow more quickly, and it's also about 57 degrees, so nice and toasty up here. Above your heads is the stalactite nursery. These are the young stalactites, are babies, and they're about 50 to 150 years old. There is a legend that goes with this part of the cave. That legend says that if you're standing here and a baby stalactite drips in your head, that's 1 year of good luck. If a drop hits your nose, that is 5 years of good luck. And if a drop hits you anywhere else, you're just getting wet, free shower. Be careful, because if you're hit by more than 5 drops, you are considered a stalagmite and must remain inside the cave. Back here, there's this rock going up for about 30 feet, then that's cut off by the solid rock at the back of the cave. Geologists tell us eventually all of that is going to erode away to create a second, naturally made entrance to the cave. Once that happens, it will no longer be a closed cave system, but that's going to take a couple hundred years at least to happen, so still a very long way off. As we head back down the stairs, again, use the left-hand side, use the railings, and watch your steps. The stairs are slippery and also a little bit uneven. Kind of looks like icing on a cinnamon bun. That's some very healthy flow stones. Here it's a bit yellow, not quite as smooth and not quite as healthy. Back here it's very rough and brown. You can even see where it's flaking away. That is some severely unhealthy flow stone. So back in the early tours, guests were not only allowed to touch formations, they could also break them off, take them home. That's what happened right here. They broke these off in the late 1800s to take home as souvenirs. They really didn't know any better because they did think they'd grow back in 1 or 2 years. They were off by a couple thousand years because it's going to take them about a couple dozen years longer than it normally would to go in after being broken off like that. And the funny thing is that the souvenirs taken from the cave damaging it are actually going to erode away if they haven't started to already, so they're going to disintegrate without mineral water to keep them going anyhow. Before we go into the next room, just want to point out this little red light. We have red lights like this indicate low-hanging rock. We call them wish lights because if you're not paying attention, they fix your head. You're going to really wish you'd see them. I get paid to tell you guys bad jokes. That's not the last one you're going to hear.
Wait, so what are the red lights for?
Oh, no, you're good.
What's well, I won't hit it.
Oh, look at down there.
Oh. I'm on the down there.
Going to have you guys scooch in, make a little bit more space so people behind you can get a bit closer. So this is the smallest room of the cave we visit. We call it the storage room because John Garrett and William Merkle, the farmers who first discovered this cave, they did store their crops in here for a little while. It's about 54 degrees year-round, so they felt how cold it was, figured it'd be the perfect place for their food. However, they did not account for the moisture in the cave, and because of that moisture, their crops spoiled about 4 times as quickly in here as they would have outside. The other reason we call this the storage room is because if you look carefully, then use your imagination, you might spot some of our Crystal Cave props. Here we have some string beans, a giant carrot, baby carrots, more string beans, and our enormous portobello mushroom. And we like to say, to watch over the storage room, we have here the 2 wings, the back of the head, and the tail feathers of our bald eagle. Keep in mind that despite what it sort of looks like, none of these were carved out. These were all made naturally with a flowstone and dripstone as it came down the rock. Right back here is our ribbon candy, and this is just a type of flowstone known as drapery. It's white here because, again, it's made of calcite. Same with this. But the calcite of this drapery has mixed with iron oxide, giving it a slightly brownish tint, so we call this our moldy cave bacon. There's also a little bit of green plant life on it. Above your heads here is the largest drop rock of the cave. Drop rock means that this fell in an earthquake, and that earthquake took place about 500,000 years ago. So this was shifted loose from the rocks above, and it wedged itself into these rocks here, creating this small room. We are going to pass by the other side of this as we exit the cave, and I'll show you the stress fractures where it broke free. As some of you came in, you already noticed this side passageway here, marked with a red light. We have one other side passageway like this, marked with a similar light. This goes about 125 feet back where we came, and it leads out into a small room underneath at that auditorium where you watched your video. We have some wiring down there for the lights, and the maintenance crew are pretty much the only ones allowed down there in case anything needs to be fixed or attended to. Also, formations growing down there grow at a slower rate because it takes water a longer time to get that far down in the cave. So the last thing I'm going to point out here is this gray area. This is actually soot damage. Some of the very early, not so clever tour guides did what they called kerosene trails. They would pour kerosene on the rocks, strike a match, and light it on fire to better show the room to their guests. Not only did this severely damage the formations, dry them out, eat away at them, they often ended up smoking themselves out of the cave as a result. Now over this winter season, they actually did some restoration here, I can tell, because it's not as gray. It's being a little bit restored to its former color, so they were able to save this somewhat. As you head on, you might notice other signs of the kerosene trails as well. So there is another wish light here. Please remember to watch your head as we continue.
It's a stalagmite. Whoa.
ballroom. The reason that we called it the crystal ballroom is because there are different types of crystals growing in here. Glittering all along the wall on this side are the six-sided sodium calcite crystals. When John Garrett and William Merkle first saw these, they thought maybe they'd struck it rich, and it was diamond or some other type of valuable gem. They broke off a chunk, took it to a local jeweler in Kutztown to be appraised, and then find out it's not worth any more than common table salt. Like salt, it will dissolve in water, and it's also pretty common in the area. So again, not worth very much at all. The water dripping down into this part of the cave, there's not enough of it to really dissolve it. It would actually have to be submerged in water to begin dissolving. Right down here is the second type of crystal. These are the 8-sided aragonite crystals. You do have a little bit of the sodium calcite growing on top of them. There's some more aragonite crystals on the ceiling here. You know that this has to be older than the sodium calcite because, as I said before, the aragonite was formed when the cave was flooded, so the sodium calcite would have had to form after the cave water receded or it would have dissolved. There's a third type of calcite crystal up here in the ceiling. You guys are pretty lucky that you came here in the beginning of our season because as time goes on in the summer, more people come through here, these fog over and they are no longer visible. The reason this is called our crystal ballroom is because from 1874 to 1917 it was a ballroom for the guests of the inn, which is now the gift shop where you buy your tickets. They would come up here during hot summer days and nights to party, cool off, and meet with other guests. It used to be knee-high mud all across here, so they did have to lay down wooden floorboards so people could walk and dance across it. Back in this corner, they would often have a live band performing music for the guests, and that was one of the very first rock bands. Rolling Stones. So back here, there would be a concession stand serving food and drinks, and it's actually rumored that during Prohibition, this served as a sleeping. Back here, behind you, is the largest stalagmite of the cave. However, this didn't grow here. It was brought here and cemented where it is now to be used as an altar for different ceremonies held in the cave, justly named Altar Rock. By bringing this formation here, though, it was doomed to seal. You can see it's discolored and flaking away. It is now a dead formation. It's going to continue to flake away, most likely until there's nothing left of it. Anyway, as I said, Altar Rock, 2 weddings and 3 baptisms held in the cave. First wedding was in 1990 between Mary McPherson and Francis Finley. First one's at the Cave Wedding in Pennsylvania. And before the wedding, they went to the piano, so some fools asked them to drag that piano up the steep incline, down through the muddy cave and back out after the wedding. Very difficult, as you can imagine. They only paid 25 cents, which in today's money is $13, not a whole lot. Second wedding in 1988, that one was a bit of a disaster. People got squirmy, broke things off, made a mess, so they decided to do more cave weddings. However, there were 3 cave weddings. There were 2 employees and 90 feet, so this is this part you visit. This side passageway goes down another 30 feet, so it's 155 feet below ground from the deepest point of the cave. It's also a bit cooler down there because of it. It ranges from about 48 to 49 feet. If you follow my flashlight outside of Devil's Den, hopefully you can see this crack going all the way along the ceiling. This is part of the Blue Ridge fault system. It is an inactive fault system, but this is still structurally the weakest point of the cave. If there were to be a big enough earthquake, this would be the very first room to collapse. Some of you might remember back in 2011, there was a small earthquake outside of Washington, D.C. It was about a
Oh, look at that.
That looks like a
Look
dinosaur.
at that one.
That
Looks like a
looks like a
scoop.
dinosaur.
This is what she was talking about. Okay. You climb down that. Go in to the left. I'm following. Oh, look at all the way down there. That looks like fun. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, I can see the Eiffel Tower.
And you guys move in a little bit more so we can get everybody off the bridge. Over here to my right is what the early explorers made nicknamed Prairie Dog Island, and these prairie dogs are sitting on a small piece of drop rock that fell from up here, what we now call Cathedral Dome. It fell in that same earthquake I've been telling you about that took place 500,000 years ago. So because it fell, it left room for 200 to 300 stalactite formations to grow. If you look at the edge of this drop rock here, you might be able to see this little knob. So imagine this being flipped, and you can see how this would fit into here. This actually flipped upside down as it fell. It most likely hit the side of this rock here, and that's what caused it to flip over. We also have some cave coral on Prairie Dog Island. It's not alive like coral from the ocean. It's not coral at all, it's just a nickname, and it's similar to the aragonite I showed you in the crystal ballroom. It has to be underwater to grow, so this is the final piece of evidence the cave was flooded. There's some more of it up here, and there's some more in Cathedral Dome.